On the side of the U.S. Constitution, America first.
Do you remember 4 years ago, about now, what was the rage? Two things. Well, apart from burning up limos owned by Middle Eastern immigrants who paid $80,000 for them so they could make a crust in D.C. But hey, if you're a leftist, you can, firebomb limos. The two things that were going around, the rage at the time, pink pussycat hats. Remember those? Yeah. And then a phrase, resist. What is our role now in opposition? And by the way, have any of those crazy leftists removed the hashtag resist from their Twitter headers? Let's ask somebody who has been keeping his eye on the corrupt swamp that is Washington, D.C. on behalf of all Americans. He is the director of investigations for that incredible organization, Judicial Watch. Chris Farrell, welcome back to America First.
Great to be with you, Seb. Thanks very much.
Let me ask you, the philosophical or, you can even say operational question. How does life change for you or for the amazing organization that is Judicial Watch when we have Biden sworn in as the 46th president of the United States? What does that mean for you operationally in terms of fighting the swamp?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that the left is much more adept at maneuvering and working the levers of the state. The right is always sort of clumsy and awkward and not very smart about how to manipulate all the different, kind of pressure points and levers and powers. They kind of stumble and bumble around, and they're not really sure who they're going to put in what position or what kind of authority they have. The left, since they are creatures of the state, that's the waters in which they swim and they love. We knew they would have, 20 executive orders ready to go on day one. We knew that they would have all sorts of rule changes and regulatory tweaks to roll back Trumpisms on day one. And so, in fact, I had a discussion with my colleagues a couple of weeks ago once it became apparent what was going to happen. And I said, we need to be ready on day one to look for all the EOs, all the rule changes, all the regulatory tweaks, because they're going to rapidly reverse everything Trump, and they're going to sneak in some really creepy stuff that no one's expecting, because they'll be able to move it quickly in the blizzard of activity early in the administration.
So let's continue this discussion of who's good at managing the levels of power and getting their agenda through or subverting others. So there's a dear listener of ours who came up with an interesting theory and just texted it to me and said, it's interesting when you look at the Trump administration and who was in it and what they did after they left. There are a handful who have stayed loyal to the MAGA agenda after they left, who were persistently attacked either inside the White House or outside the White House. And there are others, interesting individuals, like the former Chief of Staff, General Kelly, and others, and Mattis, and what have you, and Bolton, who went in, apparently, to serve the President of the United States, and then came out and suffered none of the calumny, suffered none of the libel that others like myself have, and who admitted to being kind of anti-Trumpers, never Trumpers, once they left the administration. Now, that taxonomy is pretty accurate. There are, of course, other groups that came in and left. Is there any reasonable expectation or theory for how that happened? Can we posit that the corrupt swamp members went in with a forethought to do damage to the agenda that had elected Donald Trump to the White House? I'm super hypersensitive. We just did a whole segment trashing conspiracy theories, but there seems to be an unusual pattern to some of the big names who went in from the establishment and came out utterly unsullied.
Well, remember, the establishment is all about promoting the establishment.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn about any sort of political philosophy or ideology. They are in it for their own resume padding and their next appointments to the next, corporate board or, foundation fellowship grant. That's what they're looking for. And so for them, it's all it's a careerist, sort of opportunist approach to their service to government is really monetizing their last government position. And they don't care who's in authority or power. I know a number of general officers who've written, loving notes to Hillary Clinton, and then they've written loving notes to President Trump, because it's all about access and power. And that's an entire breed of Washingtonian. And that's probably some of the general officers that you discussed earlier.
Let me, that reminds me, you have a stellar career as a former counterintelligence officer in the U.S. Army. Your reaction to the yet to be confirmed, let's be clear, but the incoming Secretary of Defense, a general who has retired, not in a satisfactory fashion to comport with the 7-year mandate for retirees coming back as cabinet members, but to have General Austin say, was it yesterday or the day before, that we have enemies inside the U.S. military, and it's his job to root out these racist enemies.
Yeah, look, we have a real problem in the flag officer ranks going over. Anyone who went from 06 to 07,
yes,
meaning from colonel or Navy captain to flag rank of admiral or general, anyone who made that jump from about 2012 onward, in my view, I refer to them as they're all Obama generals, right? They all passed some sort of political litmus test in the last 8 years or so that, made sure that they were Obama certified and Obama reliable. And in the case of people like Mattis and Kelly, another sort of conservative observer of who we both know, has said, look, these are all the generals who led our failed policy in the Middle East, right?
Yes.
Why are we trusting them? And so these are the same guys who say, oh, sure, we could have soldiers show up and wear a skirt one day and say that they're transgendered, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that's one of the breaking news items today is Biden's intention to reverse the Trump ban on transgenders in the military. So it's all connected. These aren't military professionals. They are political hacks. Biden's generals are just another version of Obama's generals. We're talking to Director of Investigations for the superb Judicial Watch. Follow them at Judicial Watch on Twitter. Chris Farrell. Chris will be with us after these messages. Stay on this channel.
Making sense out of today's nonsense. Here's Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Text just in from Alexis. I like it. Alexis heard our little chat on crushing conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theorists are just another form of fake news. Of course they are. To spread false hope only hurts us and the president's credibility, and they're out there to do exactly that. Of course, it's just another category of fake news. Nicely done, nicely done. We are back with Chris Farrell, who heads up investigations for the superb Judicial Watch, judicialwatch.org. Support them today, and also check out, it's at the top of our Twitter and Facebook feeds. They have a petition already, 50,000 yeses, demanding that there be a special counsel to investigate the Biden family's corruption. A great idea. Sign your name to that position, petition. Chris, we were talking about the swamp and the various fifth columnists who are undermining the president of the United States. I want to open the aperture on that slightly, because you've done so much incredible work on the border, which is going to be more relevant than ever. But the swamp and the deep state, That's not just a D.C. phenomenon, is it?
It's not, and I can tell you that, for example, in El Paso, Texas, which is falsely called America's safest city, look, there are entrenched federal law enforcement bureaucrats who are corrupt as can be in the El Paso region because there's sort of this mutually assured destruction, go along to get along mentality between the cartels. And I will tell you, the cartels are all doing high fives at the Biden administration is now in office. But there's this corruption. In its mildest form, it's turning a blind eye. And in its most provocative, outrageous form, it's Border Patrol marked patrol units delivering bales of burlap sacks of marijuana to barns in Anthony, New Mexico. I know dates, times, places. It's an extraordinary 7-year-long investigation. But there's a lot of people who make a living out of never missing an opportunity to miss an opportunity. They enjoy the status quo. They enjoy sort of the perpetual inability of our government to resolve the war on drugs. It's now 50 years old, and somehow we just can't quite figure it all out. We've spent billions of dollars on things like SBI Net, which was a Boeing operation. They charged the federal government billions and billions of dollars to videotape Mexicans and Central Americans running across the desert. It's wonderful for historical purposes, but what does it do for border security? Nothing. And, Biden's ready to go back to a quote-unquote technology answer for border security. So I guess we're going to see SBI Net, version 3, and that'll cost another $10 billion.
So we'll have nice video footage for historically documenting the thousands of caravans crossing the border. Is that what you're saying, Chris?
Exactly. No fence. Don't actually stop them. Just have sensors and motion detectors and night vision that shows the thousands and thousands crossing every night.
What else can you predict in the next year is going to occur when the amnesties are undersigned, when the catch and release is reinstigated? How is that going to affect our national security, Chris?
Well, you're going to see a collapse of healthcare on the border. It already has happened in some places like Bisbee, Arizona, where the hospital actually closed. There is no hospital in Cochise County in Bisbee, Arizona, despite millions and millions of dollars in federal subsidies, because the hospital simply could not keep up with the number of illegal aliens entering the country and seeking medical care. And so health care across the border states, across those border communities, the healthcare system will collapse because, remember, every single Democratic candidate promised free health care for illegal aliens, taxpayer financed. And so you're going to pay the bill for that, and the influx is going to be outrageous, and the load that's going to be pulled by border communities to pay for that, it's unsustainable.
A very wise person once said, you can have a nation with a welfare health system, or you can have a nation with open borders, but you can't have a nation with welfare in health and open borders. That country will cease to exist very rapidly. We've been talking to Chris Farrell, head of investigations for Judicial Watch. Follow them at Judicial Watch on Twitter and support them, judicialwatch.org. Be careful out there, Chris. This is America First on the Salem Radio Network, broadcasting from the ReliefFactor.com studios.